Well, welcome to the Job Pod with Job Service North Dakota. I'm Dusty Hillebrand, your host, and we're going to be talking about apprenticeships today. One of the things as I talk with employers, one of the recurring themes I hear over and over again is that they can't find job seekers that have the right skills or enough of the skills to fill their openings. And that's when I talk to them about one of my favorite training methods, apprenticeships. We find apprenticeships in the majority of the trades, electricians, plumbers, HVAC, those ones that we think about. I have a cousin right now who's going through an electrician apprenticeship here in Grand Forks, and he loves it. I actually have another cousin who already went through that training, and I think this is a training tool or method that just is not used enough, and many other industries could find a way to bring apprenticeships into the fold. My guest today is North Dakota State Director with the Department of Labor and Office of Apprenticeship, and I happen to serve with him in Iraq, Barry Dutton. Barry, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Dusty. Long time no see. Good to see you again.
Yeah, definitely. It's a small world, right?
Yes, it is. That's crazy, ain't it?
So when we hear the word apprenticeship, I mean, people have all kinds of crazy ideas. And like I said, a lot of times we think about plumbers, electricians, HVAC, carpenters. Those are some of the ones that just jump out to a lot of people. But it's more than that. So Barry, what is an apprenticeship?
Well, I'll give you the official title first. Apprenticeships are industry-driven, high-quality career pathways where employers can develop their future workforce, and individuals who participate can gain paid work experience and classroom instruction. Plus, at the end, they get a nationally recognized curriculum. I knew I was going to mess something up from the U.S. Department of Labor. And they usually register programs with us to show job seekers that their apprentice programs are nationally registered and they stick to an industry curriculum out there. So anybody could start an apprenticeship program and do what they want and call it what they want. But this is something that we watch really closely. The Department of Labor has been doing since 1937. And basically it comes down to it's a paid job. It's work-based learning. It's classroom learning with a mentorship, and you get credentials at the end, which you can possibly turn into college credentials.
Yeah, and what I really like about apprenticeships, and I've said this many times on the podcast over this last year that we've been doing the podcast, is that apprenticeships allow you to build an employee from scratch, and you don't have to break bad habits.
That is true. Apprenticeship is where the employer... And if you think about it, a lot of employers already do apprenticeships. They just don't call them that.
Right.
When you go out to a job, you hire me, I work for you, and you go, okay, I'm going to hook you up with Ralph here. He's been here for 10 years. He's going to tell you how the company runs. These are our policies. This is what we do. This is how everything works. So, I mean, you have the paid training and you have the mentorship. Some of the things you might not get are the related technical instruction, though, and you don't get a credential out of it. So a lot of people are already doing apprenticeships in some way, shape, form. They just haven't formalized the process, So employers, and I always tell employers, I was like, you're getting employees and you're training your future workforce how you do business, and you're training them in occupation-specific things. You're not teaching them philosophy and all these other different things. You're teaching them how to be a metal worker or an IT professional or whatever the case is. So it's occupation-specific, And
that leads me into my next question. And you've kind of alluded to it. So, as the state director of the Office of Apprenticeship, what do you do?
Well, I'm a one-man show, so I pretty much do everything from answering the phone, taking out the trash, to whatever. But my primary function is I meet with sponsors and businesses. I I meet with Job Service. I meet with Department of Commerce. I meet with everybody from the governor down to an apprentice in the state. But my primary mission is to go out and talk to sponsors, and that's what we call the individual businesses or labor groups or whatever. So they're sponsors and they're interested. How can they grow their workforce? How can they find these people that they're having trouble finding? How can they retain them? So I go out and discuss with them, hey, what do you do? How do you do it? What are some of the occupations you're looking for? What kind of hurdles do you have that you can't overcome to get these people? And let's help you design a training program so we can put this all together and formalize the agreement. Because once it's formalized, the employer is basically saying, hey, Dusty, this is what I'm going to give you. I'm going to teach you this. You're going to get paid this at certain intervals, at certain levels as you learn. And on the other end, the employee pretty much says, hey, I'm going to be faithful. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do what you say. So that's pretty much what I do. I assist the sponsors in developing training programs. And then, of course, I go out and monitor them. I ensure they're hiring fairly. They're playing by affirmative action rules, EEO rules. Make sure they're paying people the same amounts. You know, Jill and Bill are getting paid the same if they have the same credentials. So we really monitor all these programs and make sure they're being fair. And I always tell people, I was like, the employer tells them what they're going to get. The apprentice knows what they're going to get. And I'm kind of the referee in the middle. That's kind of in essence what I do, man.
I like that, the referee in the middle.
Yeah.
But, but I think, that's a good point that you bring up is the employer saying this, the apprentice knows this. So let's just go back. And again, I'm going to use an electrician because that's kind of the one that I know, right? So you come in, and your first year, you're taking some of those classes, you're out on the work site doing work experience. So it's hands-on and classroom at the same time, which is great. And that first year you're supposed to make, let's just say $20 an hour, right?
Sure.
And then, so you go through that first year, you're doing great, you're doing well, you've learned, and then you go on to the second year. So now you're bumped up another, let's say $2. And by the time you're done, and you're on that fourth year apprentice for an electrician, you're at, I don't know, let's say $28 an hour, and then you're done, right? Now you're going to move on, you're going to test out, and you're going to become a journeyman. And then, after that, you've got apprentice to tell what you're going to do.
That's right. Well, and that's what we do when we set up with the sponsors. I ask them, they have this misconception that the Department of Labor is going to come out there and tell them what they pay their employees and when they assess them and things like that. So that's some of the things that I work out in their contract, and we called it a set of standards, apprenticeship standards. So I work with them, and I was like, okay, Dusty, you're an electrician. You want to train electricians. This is your company, ABC. What do you pay a journeyman that you could send out on the job and say, Barry, go out and do this? Without anybody supervising or whatever. He can get stuff for the truck, load it up, go out there, do the job, and come back. I pay my average journeyman $20 an hour, $30 an hour, let's just say. So then I sit with them and I say, okay, what do you hire guys off the street at? Well, I might hire them at, $15 an hour or whatever. Okay, so we set up a wage scale in that process too. So they're doing their on-the-job training. We try and match the related training and technical instruction with that, so they're doing the same thing. If they're learning about basics of electricity while they're on the job, then they're also learning that in the classroom. We try and set that up. So then we develop their wage scale. And it's up to the company. The company has the flexibility. They can assess their apprentice every year because the electrician is an 8,000-hour programmer for a year. So they can assess them every year, or they can go every 6,000 hours, every 6 months, or whatever they want to set up. So if they want to, every 6 months, every 1,000 hours, they set the apprentice down and go, hey, Dusty, man, you've done a good job while you're working for me. You've attended all the classes. You've learned everything. You've done well in the job. We'll bump you up. So they started you at 50%, then you go to 55, 60, 65, 70, whatever the case is. And those are some of the specifics I work out with the employer. So that's in the contract. That's in the standards. And then the apprentice knows, hey, man, I'm starting at whatever, $20 an hour. At the end, light at the tunnel is $40 an hour. And then they get to take their journeyman's license, and then they go on from there. And I can't tell you how many people have gone through the electrical program here in North Dakota and now have their own companies as electricians. And they call me back up and go, hey, I went through this program. Now I want to set up my own. I did good.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
And I think, again, we go back to the trades, but you had kind of mentioned here, you said IT, right?
Yes.
And I think that one of the podcasts I did this past summer with North Dakota IT, Tony Eklund, he had talked about you don't necessarily need to go to school to be in cybersecurity. They can teach you that, or you can take classes, you can watch whatever. And I think, that right there is an opportunity for those companies to come in and say, hey, listen, you're starting out at this level. Great. Perfect. That's where I want you at. And then, but we're going to teach you this on the job in this classroom. Boom. Registered apprenticeship.
Yep. Well, and that's perfect, man, because I heard a while back that like almost 70% of the jobs that are in North Dakota really don't require a degree. And I'm not knocking degrees and 2-year and 4-year degrees. That's great. Apprenticeship can actually lead to a degree later on because colleges will give you previous credit for that learning. They recognize that it's a certified training program. But yeah, I mean, there's so many of those occupations out there that you really don't need to have a 2-year or a 4-year degree to get into it. They can teach you on the job. I mean, they can teach you how to be a cybersecurity tech. You learn Linux systems or whatever the case the system is, and you go on from there. So a lot of the sponsors that work with me, they have the option to pick their training provider. A lot of them tie in with the colleges that are already here in North Dakota.
Right.
Or they can use any method they want almost to train these people. So they use multiple methods tied together. So we do have some of the IT folks in North Dakota now for the state that are working with some of the colleges actually teaching IT and cybersecurity. I've got that registered as a program already.
And I think, if someone deals with you, so, I mean, you could start off your own apprenticeship, right? We're going to put the air quotes on it, but it's not a registered apprenticeship. So it doesn't necessarily mean if someone could come in and you're going to apprentice them, and you're going to teach them what to do, but it's not necessarily a registered apprenticeship. And that's what's the important part about this. It needs to be registered with DOL, Department of Labor, not the North Dakota Department of Labor, the Federal Department of Labor, so that you guys have standards that are out there, and these standards are across the nation. And like you said earlier, the certificate will transfer from state to state because, the should be the same.
That's right. That's the big thing about apprenticeship. Like I said, you can do whatever you want at your work and call it an apprenticeship, and it might be, but it might not have all those things I spoke of before: the paid job, the work-based learning, the related training, the classroom, the mentorship, and then the certificate at the end. And I always tell people, if you come with us, the United States Department of Labor, and I said you register a program with us, that opens a lot of doors. It opens money for WIOA funding, potential funding through Job Service, potential funding through Commerce. There's grants out there. For veterans, it's huge.
Oh, definitely.
Okay? We talked about that. So if you're in a registered apprenticeship program, then my guy from the state approving agency, Chris, calls me up and says, Barry, does Dusty have a program with ABC Electric? Absolutely. He goes out there. I've already done most of the paperwork. He does a little bit more of his paperwork. And then you as the veteran not only get paid by the job that you're learning, they're paying and training you to learn, but the VA is also going to give you a stipend for learning too. And under WIOA, there's potential for Pell Grants and all sorts of different things to take your related training through these companies. So I try and tell people all the time, and I've been beating myself up for 16 years, is like, the federal government doesn't tell you what to do. I was like, we are not just union. We are not just non-union. All I care about is that you say you are going to treat the apprentices this way and you treat them fairly. That's my job, is to protect the welfare of the apprentices. Pay them and you treat them fair. I'm the referee. That's all I care about doing. So, yeah, being in a registered program with the U.S. Department of Labor opens a lot of potential funding doors and a lot of different things that are out there. Now, it provides credibility.
And I'm glad that you brought up the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, or WIOA, because in my office here in Grand Forks, we, over the past couple of years here, we've actually worked with a few folks that are going through apprenticeship for that same thing. We can help pay for not only some of the salary stuff, but we can pay for some of the related technical training. which can be huge for both the apprentice and the business. Right. And not enough people know about that. And so part of the reason why we're doing the podcasts are so we can get this information out.
Yep. And that's one of the things I always said when I got here. I was like, apprenticeship is almost like one of the best kept secrets there is. And I don't understand it, because when I worked for the Bismarck Fire Department, I went through an apprenticeship there, and it was 3.5 years. It was great, man. I learned everything there on the job. I got promoted pretty quickly. I went up to a captain's position, and that's where I stayed until we went to Iraq. So the military has apprenticeship programs.
Yeah.
There's U.S. MEPS, the military and the Marine Corps and the Army and Navy. They all have apprenticeship programs. So it's a recognized training tool that's been out there for years. People just don't use it because I don't know if they're scared of being with the government or whatever the case is, but I'm the only government bureaucracy there is in the state for North Dakota. So I'm pretty easy to get along with, I think,
Yep, I agree. But you're right, though. It is something that I think businesses are scared of, because there is a little bit of legwork on their side of it. They have to be able to put together the plan, working with you to figure out what it is. So there is a little bit of work for the employer, but with that, keep in mind, how can apprenticeships be, and we've kind of already talked about this, but I'm just going to ask it anyways. How can apprenticeships be helpful to a business?
Well, first of all, they help with their recruiting and develop a diverse, highly skilled workforce, man. I mean, you're bringing people in. You develop a constant pipeline of people that are coming in the door that want to learn this occupation. They might not want to sit in class and do all these different things to get a degree. They might just want to learn how to work on diesel engines or whatever the case is. There's a lot of things out there. It improves companies' productivity and their profitability. It reduces turnover. It creates a sense of loyalty. I mean, if you understand that I'm working for you and you're taking your time out to develop a training plan and actually send me to class or teach me there, that kind of develops a sense of loyalty that this employer cares about me. You know, you actually care about me and my livelihood and what I want to do. And I can't think, when I was in the fire department, of anybody that ever quit during the apprenticeship program. Never, ever, I think of my electricians, like you talk about, 80-90% of them end up being journeymen and continuing on. So that's another thing. The flexibility of training, the potential for funding from different sources, the help to the vet community, and it demonstrates an investment in, like I said, in your people and in your community, So you become known as an employer that trains people to stay here, to stay in the state, to stay on our tax rolls, to live in our communities, and to thrive. I mean, you're helping everybody out, actually, not just your business.
Yeah, definitely. One of the when I talk to employers, one of the things they talk about is turnover, right? And I have conversations with a couple of the employers around here, and there's companies that have 60% turnover, and it blows my mind. Like, why so much turnover? And like you said, apprenticeships are, the folks who go through apprenticeships are very, very loyal to the companies that hire them on and do the training. If you work for somebody who gives two cares about you, you're going to stick around, because there's a lot of companies out there that, just to be frank, they don't care. They don't seem to care.
Right. And you're seeing it now with all these people since the pandemic. All these people decided, hey, I quit, man. I'm tired of being treated like another, cog in the gear here.
Right.
I'm done. I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to do something creative where they get something for themselves. And hopefully apprenticeship provides them something. It gives them something. It gives them a sense of loyalty, a sense of being. They're important to that company. I mean, they're doing something that's very important. You think about Caterpillar or some of those places like that, or John Deere has apprenticeship programs. Those people are invested in that company. So when they see that green tractor, they go by and they go, hey, man, we put the wheel hubs on those babies. Yeah,
Right.
Some, it gives them a sense of being. And I think that's what a lot of the workforce in general is is missing now, man. They've had enough of being treated just like another number. So, hopefully people that run apprenticeship programs know that and know why they're doing these things, you know?
Yeah. And you've hit it kind of already on the head here. As my next question was going to be how are they helpful for job seekers? But I mean, you've kind of already hit it on the head. You're getting training, you're getting on the job training and classroom training or related technical training, right?
Right.
You're getting a company that's loyal to you also because they're putting the effort into making sure that you're the best that you can be for that job. And your pay is going to go up.
A ton of debt.
Right. Yeah, that's another big thing too. I mean, I have friends that, and I've said this before on the podcast, I have friends that have $70,000 in student loans. I've got a very close family member who I think he still probably has 40 grand and he's been out of college for 20 years. So it's that's a big thing. And when you can go through and find the training and good paying jobs, I mean, I've never met a poor electrician.
And there is so much money to be made out there in the skilled trades. And I use my son as an example. We had this discussion when he's younger, and he's like, I want to go to school and be a record producer and all that. And I was like, they want 50, 60 grand for you to show up. They're not guaranteeing you a job, bud. I was like, why don't you look at this? So he looked at VSC at their power plant technology program. So he got in there. He started with Basin Electric, who had an apprenticeship program with me. He jumped over to Heskett at MDU on steam turbines over there. Then he went to Colorado down there and he worked in the power plant in Colorado. Then he went to Washington State and worked in gas turbines and natural gas powered stuff at the University of Washington. And now he went back to Colorado and he works for Coors, and he's one of the plant managers. I mean, he does all the maintenance on the plant, and I mean everything that you could possibly do. And if you've ever seen the plant, it takes up half the city of Golden, So it's amazing. And he makes a lot of money. He makes over 100 grand, and he's less than 30 years old, and he's realized that if you want to work and you want to hook up with these companies that do stuff, there's money to be made in trades,
Yeah, and that's, when you're that young and you're making that kind of money, you put it away. You don't have to work until you're 55, 60 years old. I mean, I'm going to be working until, I don't know if I can count that high.
Yeah, I don't either, man. I don't have enough fingers.
I got to borrow someone's toes to get really that high.
Yeah, no doubt. So we went to a deal once in Dallas, and they had a young kid up there. And they said, how did you hear about apprenticeship? And he goes, I saw my friend. This guy had a brand new Silverado truck. And he's like, dude, how'd you get this truck? And the guy said, I did an apprenticeship program. The guy goes, what do you mean an apprenticeship program? He said, I work with the linemen out here, and I got a job as a lineman in his apprenticeship program. And he said, I make like X amount of money an hour, $40, $50 an hour. He says, I got a truck. And the guy's like, how do I talk to this guy? He goes, so a couple years later, I got a new truck sitting outside. So, I mean, I deal with all those people here, Basin and MDU and the North Dakota Rural Electric Cooperatives, just Minn Kota, just to name a few of those people that are big in the state. They pay well. They pay good money, and they train you good. And these are careers, like you say, they don't have to stay here until they're 105 like me and you.
Right.
So, yeah.
And that's, again, I hope that people listen to this podcast. I mean, we're only probably halfway through it, maybe a little bit more. But I think the knowledge that you're dropping on these folks and we're dropping on these folks is hopefully it's starting to hit home because, I hear all the time from employers, well, I can't find the people that I need. And I say, well, what have you done to attract them? What have you done? And there's so many things. And so this leads me into my next question. We talk about the trades a lot, and we brought up IT, but what are some of those non-traditional industries where we can find apprenticeships?
All right. Of course, the IT we talked about, hospitality sections, finance, it just depends statewide what different places have, cybersecurity, the energy industry, advanced manufacturing, engineering, transportation. Fargo diversion is coming up out there in Fargo. That's going to be a huge project, and they've said they want 15 to 20% apprentices out there on that job. There's some big money to be made. And whether you're going to be a surveyor or engine equipment operator, whatever the case is, there's money out there. So that's just a few of them. I mean, I have a list here that I get every year. This has maybe 15 or 1,600 different occupations, and it goes from able seaman down to x-ray technician. We don't have Zamboni driver on it yet, but we're getting close, man. So
we need to see.
That'll be one of the ones we add. And that's another thing. If a company has something that's not on our list, then we work with our regional office and our national office to develop these new occupations. Because for a while there, we were way behind the times, and all we did was worked on construction stuff like that. So now we've branched out into these other arenas, and apprenticeship works for all these things. People just don't know that it's there, that it's an option.
Yeah, and a couple of years back, Job Service had given the North Dakota Department of Commerce a grant to do some apprenticeship work, to spread the word on apprenticeships. And going through that, one of the things that I hear a lot, especially in the healthcare, is that, we need them to go through, let's just take a nurse, for example. The nurses have to go through the education to get to point A to point B, right? And I'm like, do they really have to? Are we wasting, because one of the things that we have right now, we have in North Dakota, we have about 300,000. No, we have 3,000 openings in the healthcare world, right? And not all those are going to be nurses, and not all of them are going to be doctors. I mean, it's healthcare in general. But with that being said, if we could open our eyes a little bit and figure out how to make that an apprenticeship, have someone come in, start as a CNA, right? I mean, we already have those classes there. Have them start as a CNA, and then you build on that person all the way up. You're going to have folks in the hospital, in those clinics, that already are building those skills, and they have the on-the-job training because they're right there with you all the way through. And then after 4 years, they have an RN, or we could probably even figure out how to do it to get their bachelor's or something crazy like that. So again, one of the ones that jumped out to me during this grant thing that we did a couple years back was there was it wasn't in North Dakota, it was in a different state. A hospital needed to have all of their nurses at a certain level. And so they would bring someone on at a lower level and then put them in an apprentice program. And guess what? They were filling holes in their workforce by apprenticeship.
What we need is sponsors to catch on to that. I've worked for years there, about 6 or 7 years. We beat ourselves up trying to get healthcare people involved. And they're a little leery because of the regulations. But the one thing about the Department of Labor is we follow state regulations. So I'm not going to go against anything that the North Dakota Nursing Board says or any of those boards. We work in conjunction with them. And the Department of Labor developed years ago a program with Good Lutheran, and they started people as environmental people or food service people. And they said, hey, we want to be CNAs now. All right, we're going to do intern credentialing, and we'll dump you up and teach you how to be a CNA. We want to be LPNs. So they go from CNAs to LPNs and then up to RN. Well, of course, RN's going to take schooling too, but who's to say that they can't do all their on-the-job training here while they're going to nursing school at night? A lot of people do that. So right now, 2 of the colleges in the state, Lake Region and NDSCS, have CNA programs already set up. So we're working that direction, but we need the word out that this is a viable option to be done, And
it just takes a turn. That's not what I want to say. A change in mindset, a
paradigm shift, basically.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. You use the big word.
I just thought of it, man. So I got lucky.
But it's just looking at things from a different angle, so that, hey, we have an issue here. How do we fix it? And this isn't anything new. When this country was first, prior to it being the United States of America, when we just had a bunch of colonies rolling around out there, right? We had apprenticeships then, learning how to make all kinds of stuff. And now we've gotten away from it. We've gotten to this, traditional, we need to go to school. We need to, and again, not knocking, I have a 4-year degree. I'm not knocking college. I'm not knocking 2-year degrees. I mean, that's important, but do we need to, I didn't need to take art history. I don't remember anything from it.
Right. Understand.
So
yeah, apprenticeships have been around for 5,000 years, man.
So all we got to do is just, again, change a little bit. Instead of taking art history, how about I take because I mean, my background is in teaching, right? And so one of the things that I think teachers don't get enough of when they're going through classroom or going through college is classroom experience. Because if you have a teacher who has got really good, the ability to control a class, or compared to a teacher that doesn't have that ability, if you put them with a good teacher in the classroom and let them see and do a little bit more, I bet you we'd have better classes and better teachers. Again, that's something that I could see doing something like an apprenticeship for. I mean, is it like again, I don't need to do art history. I didn't need to do, anthropology 101. Guess what? I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything from it, right? What good does it do to me?
Right.
So, or do to me, but do for me. It's just, again, it's changing the way we're thinking.
It is. It's a shift in the way we're thinking. And one thing, I get the sense that people seem to be threatened by our office and what we do. Like the U.S. government's going to come in and tell you what to do and tell you what you have to pay people and all these kind of things. It's like, it's not like that at all. We work with people. We work with the employers. What do you do? How do you do it? How do you want to do it? Where do you think you need to be? How can we help you get there? We work with all these different agencies, and there's 25 federal states and there's 25 state apprenticeship agencies across the U.S. And there are so many programs out there. There's 500,000 programs out there, at least, just with us, the federal side. So who knows what's in there? I know Colorado was big on finance before. So certain states have certain different little niches, but you're absolutely right. That's where you were talking about the teachers. The mentorship comes into play here. So if you're an employer, you got to do a little bit of legwork. You got to sit down and think, where do I need to be? What can I do a little bit better? Do I have someone that could train someone? Am I willing to make the investment? And they all seem to worry about the paperwork. The paperwork's nothing. It takes us a little bit up front, and then I put them on my computer system, and they can register apprentices in 2 minutes. And then basically they go about their business until I can come see them and say, hey, how you doing? How's your program doing? What can we do to make it better? So I don't know. They view us as threatening, or they view us as just for union and just for construction and things like that. And it's just not so. So, yeah, if we can change the minds by doing podcasts like this or showing up to different events, it'd be great. And when I started here, we had 400 apprentices in 2006. And at one time, I was up to about 1,400. Right now, I'm at almost 1,100. And that's pretty doggone good due to this pandemic. We thought we were going to lose a lot of people, but really hasn't been the case. So we're doing good. And this administration is backing apprenticeship big time with money. And they're talking billions. Well, we never even heard of thousands of dollars for a budget, much less billions, So I think employers across the U.S. are taking a real hard look at what they're doing and how they're doing things and looking at apprenticeship. And I heard people from Microsoft, we're in Washington, they're like, yeah, we used to say that people had to have a 2-year degree before they come over here and come into our program. They're like, why didn't we let them in our program first and then work them towards a 2-year degree? Because they said they were, in essence, cutting their own throat. They had some people that were wizard hackers that could have been in there doing stuff, learning to get a degree, and they excluded them by putting that stamp that they had to have a 2-year degree on them. So, yeah, businesses are rethinking things. So I'm thinking our business is going to get a little bit better. And now we have the new National Apprenticeship Act that's in Congress somewhere. When that comes through, we're going to start talking about pre-apprenticeships and registering pre-apprenticeships and these funnel programs and things like that people here have actually been looking for. We need to get our youth involved and for them to understand that these types of jobs are out here, not just YouTube celebrities and things like that,
Yeah, you've been talking to my kids, haven't you?
I got a granddaughter. Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. I think when I think of high school kids, right? I mean, like you said, they're watching the TikTokers and the YouTubers and whatever, right? And if you can do in a pre-apprentice program, kids, they like to have, even though they don't want to be told what to do, right? I mean, don't tell me what to do, old man. But
right.
But if they have a path, all right, a path forward. Hey, guess what? If you take these classes while you're in high school, and let's use cybersecurity for an example. You take these classes, and then we're going to put you into one of the local not computer shops, but IT places or whatever. And you're going to do a little bit of, see what the real world is related to the work that you're doing in high school. And then that just leads them down the path. We're dropping breadcrumbs down the trail. Yeah. And then, it's like trying to find a second lieutenant out doing navigation in the middle of the night. Come here, LT, come here. And
come on, we'll tell you what you got to do. Follow your sergeant. Oh, that's right. We were both NCOs, right?
So that's just, again, we go, it's changing the way we think a little bit, moving forward, and maybe not being so set in our ways, not just here in North Dakota, but across the country, because this isn't just a North Dakota thing. This is across the country thing, but opening up our mind a little bit and checking it out. So we kind of already talked about it, but if a business is interested in starting an apprenticeship, what steps should they take?
Well, one of the first things I would tell them is look at apprenticeship.gov. U.S. Department of Labor has put out a new website. Well, it's ever evolving. It's not new, but it's called apprenticeship.gov, and it lists everything, resources for educators, employers, sponsors, people who are looking to be apprentices and all that. It has a ton of information, probably way more than you'd ever want to read. You can actually start developing a program on your own through there. You can see different occupations. So there's a ton of information on there. But another quick way is to contact Job Service or contact me, and I can give you all my contact information, and we can do it either now or after, whatever you want to do. And I can help guide them in the right direction and help them set up a program and find out what they're looking for, what they want to do. I deal with people all the time. I got a list of people that I'm working with, new programs all the time. And sometimes it takes a while to get one set up, and sometimes it's pretty quick. But apprenticeship.gov is our new clearinghouse, and that has a lot of information. Now, is it all correct? No, because it's getting changed every day.
Right.
And then when they put stuff on in DC, people go, wait a second, but that's not exactly right. Let's change it up. So it's always ever evolving, but it can lead you to the contact person, maybe in South Dakota, maybe in Nebraska. Just depends where you're at. But that's our site nationwide where you can get hooked up with someone like me to help you out.
So why don't you give us your office number for the listeners?
Okay. My office is 701-250-4700. And that goes to my office and then forwards to my computer. So sometimes it's tough. Leave me a message, please, and I'll catch it. Because sometimes when I'm on stuff like this and it rings, I don't even know it hooks up. The other way to catch me is by email. That's the fastest. And it's simply my name, dutton.barry@dol.gov. So it's DUTTON.BARRY@DOL.gov.
Perfect.
Pretty simple.
Perfect. And for all you listeners, the Job Service website is jobsnd.com, and you can go through, and we got a ton of different drop-down menus. Reach out to your local office, and nothing else. You can learn about the WIO program and how it fits in within apprenticeships for those who qualify for WIOA or Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And when you talk to someone like myself, we're all about apprenticeships, and I'm a huge supporter. It's kind of funny when I got home from Iraq. I wanted to. I had like a year and a half left of college, right, and I was done. And I didn't want to go back. And so I told my wife, now girlfriend then, or fiance, and I said, hey, I don't know if I really want to go back to school. I kind of want to become an electrician. And her and my mom are both like, you've only got a year and a half left. You've put all this work in and blah, blah, blah. And, am I sad about it? Am I sorry that I took that route? No, I'm not, because I'm in the position that I am now. I get to help people every day. But if I would have taken the other way, I'd probably have my own business. Just saying.
Yep. What's a shame is that we had some people that were in Iraq that were in our company that were equipment operators. And I mean, all sorts of jobs that we did over there were absolutely amazing. They were 20, 25, 30-year-old people up to old people like me, 45, stuff like that. But they did some amazing work and some amazing jobs. And then they come back here and they really didn't have a great job or something paying them a lot of money with all the skills that they had already had.
Yep.
And that's why the military has started doing apprenticeship programs, because if you go through an apprenticeship program now and you go to some of these colleges and say, hey, like NDSCS, I went through an apprenticeship program. It was 6,000, 8,000 hours. They'll be like, hey, let's talk about giving you some previous credit for this. We'll work you towards a degree if you want to do something different, but they'll give you previous credit for that. So it's just a shame that there wasn't a lot more apprenticeship programs out there for all of our people that came back to go to.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that we're looking at now. They've introduced a new Veterans Act into all of our standards. So it basically says, hey, man, when you're hiring people and you're doing stuff, look towards our veteran community, look towards our underrepresented populations, look towards our females or Native Americans, these populations that generally don't get out. Those were the people that were doing all the work when we were in different places like that. When you saw all over Anaconda and Iraq, who was doing all that work?
Right.
All of these people, and it would have been nice for them to come back to some pretty good high-paying jobs like this.
Yeah, definitely. I think, that's one of the things that I can think of a couple people off the top of my head where they had cool jobs in Iraq. They came home and they straight up struggled because they're like, that was the best time of my life, getting mortared and every night on the base that we were on, and that's like, but that was a fun part for me. I had a great job. And then I come back here and now I'm selling, and nothing against retail. I mean, there's a lot of folks that love that, but that's not what they wanted to do. They didn't want to go sell T-shirts or whatever, or whatever it might be. So
they drove $1 million pieces of equipment,
right? Exactly. And now so it's a great way. Again, I'm very glad that they put that veteran stuff into the apprenticeship programs and deal all together. It's great to see that. So the last question that I have for you, it's the same question I ask all my guests. What is one thing the listener should take away from today's show?
All right. I got a bunch of things. I don't know how to wrap it all into one. Apprenticeship is a viable path towards middle class or upper class workforce skills, getting paid up there. There's a lot of money to be made out there in the trades. And like you said, well, I didn't want to learn art history and anthropology 101 or something like that when I want to learn how to be a diesel tech or a mechanic here or an IT professional, whatever the case is. So apprenticeship is a viable path to way beyond middle economy, whatever you want to say.
Right.
They say that average apprentices make over $70,000 more than most people in a lifetime, even more than that. So we cooperate with all sorts of agencies. I mean, I can't tell you how many agencies I talk to and how many people that I interact with and try and convince them about the merits of apprenticeship. So that's one thing I'd like to take away for sponsors. We work with you. We don't work against you. For job seekers, that this is a great place to start and a great way to advance your career. You could possibly end up with a degree. And for sponsors, like I say, this is a great way to recruit and train your workforce. So 3 into 1 things.
Love it.
Apprenticeship is a great training tool. It always has been and always will be.
It just takes a little change. That's all we need. Just a little change.
Just a little bit, man. And a very little bit of paperwork, and that's it. It's really.
Well, Barry, I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the Job Pod and telling us all about apprenticeships.
And Dusty, thank you so much for having me, and Phil and those guys for referring you my way. And it's just funny that we already knew each other right off the bat. So it is kind of a small world. That's awesome. So
it is.
We'll spread the word, and we keep working together, my friend.
Darn tootin', darn tootin'. And for those of you listening out there, I'm telling you, apprenticeships are the wave of the future. It's just a matter of finding, changing the way that we think and really opening our eyes up to the possibilities of, hey, I can grow my own employee that blows my mind, and I have all these jobs that are filled. Thanks for listening.